Right. Good morning, everyone. Can I put my hand up? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Oh, my goodness. Good morning, everyone. Oh, that's more like it. Thank you so much. Now, before we start getting into the day, I have a phone here, of which I've been siphoning all the money the whole night, but I'm joking. I'm sure it's a lady's phone. Peace be with you at the front. Anybody's? Oh, wow. Okay, all right. All right. Okay, there you go. Anyway, hopefully, if you know anyone who's lost a phone, please let me know. Now, before we move into the issues of the day, it's always good to have a look and recap on yesterday, which I thought was an excellent day. And please give yourselves a big round of applause. I thought we had a really good day yesterday, all of you, and the work we've done. But we still have a lot more work to do. So without further ado, just to introduce the day and also a recap of yesterday, please put your hands together for Leonard.
All right. Thank you very much, Andy. I think for your question how yesterday was, we need data, right? That just clapping applause doesn't work. So just want to check with you on a scale from 1 to 10, how good was yesterday? And I'll count till 3 and then you have to shout a number. You ready for that? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Where are the data scientists in the room? What was the average? It was somewhere between 9 and 10, right? 9 is still good because there's still room for improvement. There's still a lot to come. We ended yesterday, not with the boat trip, but we ended here yesterday with that connecting the dots, where I tried to connect some of the dots. But as I said yesterday also, there was so much going on here in parallel, right? Everybody has their own Agile Data and DPI Summit journey. So I want to give that task back to you. We have a new constellation here, so we will do a little bit of group reflection now. And at the group, I'll give you some time, we have one guiding question for you. So what are the key insights and lessons learned from yesterday? Right? You can discuss this now at your table. We give you approximately 10 minutes at the table, so that's not very long. Keep that in mind. Right? I think there's a lot of lessons learned and key insights. And then I want to hear back from some of you. The good ones, the bad ones. I'm curious. You ready to go? Yes. And maybe group here, Jonas, either you join, merge with one of the groups, and I think then we have a good full house. So, over to you. What are your key insights and lessons learned from yesterday? I'll see you in a bit. Thank you.
sepa. Kamu yanofamba sepa. Atakadaro dona nemsana.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I really like the activity and the engagement early morning. Now I would like to get 2-3 spotlights from the field and just short duration, high frequency, maybe one key insight, one lesson learned. Any volunteers? Any table? Over there, yes, please.
I think we had a few points of discussion, but I'll pick one. It was around the absence of AI in the conversation as of yesterday, right? There are so many problems, statements that potentially AI can support. Of course, it has to be in the right mode, right principles, and so on. But that's something that definitely came up as a discussion point here.
All right, thank you very much. One of the other groups, who's next? The group in the back, Caroline.
This is the lively corner this morning. We had two main points. One was about the notion of agile data has a whole array of agile aspects associated with it. It's not just the kind of methodology of, you know, how do you collect that data and what are some of the characteristics as Richard articulated, but then there's also how does it flow into other processes like design processes and so on that could be agile as well. So kind of broadening out perhaps a bit the concept of agility in the data systems as well as the data itself. And then the second one was a question of, is there over time, or could there be in some particular agile data sets, a migration path from what starts as perhaps survey-based tools to collect data in an agile way, but actually migrates to becoming part of DPI over time. So I was giving the example of real-time market price data for local food. At the moment, that's not part of DPI, as far as I'm aware, pretty much anywhere, at least in developing countries, but that could be. You could have something that's inside your DPI that actually is automated to collect that data over time. That's something we're curious to explore further.
All right, thank you very much. Other groups, maybe on that side? Any volunteers? Yeah. All the tables in the back, very active.
Yeah, thank you. So from our side, I think we had a number of insights, but two come out clearly. The first one is that Agile data and the DPI are interlinked and cannot be separated. And then the second one that we would want to talk about is that when you talk about DPI, it's no longer just talking about digital public infrastructure. But I think we have got to look at it and say what is its impact and essence on the business operations. So it's now a business imperative than just something to talk about. So I think those were the key ones from our side.
Thank you very much. I think we got time for one more. Maybe we go there and then we go into the front as well.
Yeah, thank you. So for us, it was the importance of human-centered data, because data without the information that is coming from the market or from the people that we want to use, we want them to use the data, it will be useless. So it has to be centered upon those or the target market, so that it will become useful. That was one of the key takeouts that we have agreed upon. And on a lighter note, the other key takeout was to know that Zambezi River is the 4th largest river in Africa.
Do we have one more learning in that direction? I think that's also important, right? All right. I think, first of all, thank you very much. I think there's a lot more insights in the room. Keep up the work and exchange on that. There was already food for thought for action items to work on, what I heard from over there and also over there. And with this, I would say back to Andy and then next steps. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Give them a big round of applause. Thank you, Leonard. Appreciate that. There was a lot learned yesterday. Thank you for all your feedback. And as Leonard said, great interaction to start the morning so early. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now moving into the crux of today. The Foundations That Matter is the title of our next session. Now, this session may be less comfortable for some of us, but we believe it's absolutely necessary. Over the past day, we've explored lived experience, practical implementation, and the convergence of agile data and digital public infrastructure. Now, let's zoom out. Before scaling digital agriculture initiatives, it's not just about tools, pilots, or innovation. It's about foundations. This session deliberately asks, what consistently gets in the way? What structural, institutional, and systemic conditions determine whether agile data and DPI succeed or stall? These are the issues practitioners acknowledge quietly, the challenges that keep people up at night. Without confronting them directly, we risk designing elegant solutions that collapse under pressure. With a shared, honest diagnosis, we can focus our collective energy where it matters most. This session is not about solving everything. It's about clarifying what truly matters. So, let's begin. Without further ado, I'd like to call up our panelists to come up, presenters to come up to the stage. First of all, please put your hands together. Remember, you have to keep clapping until they get up here. First of all, Dr. Ashrita Sarans, please come up. We'd like to call upon Jonas Specker. Jonas, thank you. Fayaz King. Fayaz, where are you? There you go. Krishan Binik and Dr. Benjamin Kwasi Adom. Please keep going, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. Thank you. Right. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. So, to speak on data democracy, there's a lot to discuss in this, and of course each speaker gets only 10 minutes, but as usual we will be asking you a question at the end. So without further ado, the Director Evaluation and Evidence Synthesis, Program Global Development Network, GDN Data Democracy. Big round of applause again, Dr. Ashrita Sarans.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's amazing to be here. And I think before I stop talking about or lecturing about what data democracy is, I think I'm going to take you through one of the case examples, and maybe we may understand what we mean by data democracy. So there's an AI company in India. I'm not going to name it essentially, just for to privacy reasons, but a few years back, they actually came up with an idea that, and they were developing as well as piloting their AI-based pest detection model in India. So they chose 5 villages, and they had test villages, and they implemented it. So they were asking the farmers there to share with them the geotagged crop images, essentially. And they need to share these images quite regularly, at least once a week. And everything was working very well in the beginning because the farmers were sharing the data, the field staff were going ahead, and they were collecting the crop data. And the AI model's accuracy improved, obviously, over the years because they were getting the data to do that. But after 1 year, they decided that they need to increase the frequency of collecting the data. So instead of collecting it once a week, they started doing it, say, once in 3 days. And that's where the farmers started asking question. We have been giving you data for 1 year. What is happening? What is the benefits of this? And if the AI model's accuracy has been increasing, why do we need to work more now? Why we burdened to do it like once in 3 days? And the problem wasn't with the AI model. It was working really well. The problem was how this was essentially being implemented into the sector. So what was happening there was that there was no clear area about what is the impact of it. There was no clear about advisories of what the impact of this intervention was essentially. And they were not getting any information about pre and post data for what has been collected. And I think when we talk about data democracy, what we essentially mean, I don't know if my slides are there already, if we can put it up throughout, you would see that data democracy means people who create the data should have the power to control it and benefit from it, essentially. So, and what is really important for data democracy is what we say as that the 3 C's are extremely important. So there should be co-creation, there should be co-governance, and there should be co-benefit. If all the 3 are not there, that means you're not doing your data democracy. And that essentially what was happening with this example or with this case study. So the good thing is the same company, they paused, they did not force the farmers to go ahead and keep giving me data. What they did is they did some key changes within how they were collecting their data. So they first of all implemented transparent feedback. So they went to the farmers and provided them before and after information. They also provided them early deduction rate in their villages, and they were compared with their neighboring villages. And they also were able to show them pest trend visualizations, which was really important. The second change that they did was they started showing the farmers the immediate tangible benefits of what was happening. So the advisories were redesigned in a way that they need to arrive faster, they need to include cost-saving pesticide thresholds, and they started showing potential input saving in terms of money. So what they said, made farmers understand was that if you input data, you get reduced expensive because your crops are not getting pest infected. So it will all about money in local currency. So that was really important. And another thing that they implemented was shared recognition. So instead of treating all the data as equal that were being input, they started recognizing high quality contributors. They started recognizing early reporters of pest outbreaks, and they started recognizing women farmers. So again, these were incentive models that they put in, and that essentially is data democracy because you show the benefit of the data that you're feeding as farmers. And what happened as a result of all of this, of course, the participation increased, and the main thing that was learned from that entire case study was that when the burden and reward, they are felt proportional, farmers, they are willing to do these kinds of information. And of course, when the recognition of what is happening becomes shared, farmers are very much willing to be a part of that chain system. And that's what essentially data democracy is. Now, let me go back to the next part of it is, I think you must have come across a lot of data sharing models already. So if you look at my slide here, and I'm not meant to be prescriptive here, trying to make a hierarchy about who is at the top or who is at the bottom. This is just a vision that is out there that we see that this is how ideally the data sharing model should be happening. So what you see on the top, I'm not able to visualize, but I hope you can. Oh, sorry. So what you see on the top, essentially we say this is a 3-layered framework. So at the top layer, you have the vision layer, which essentially is taken up by, say, policy building bodies such as Food and Agricultural Organization, you have UNESCO, you have OECD. And they set norms, and which is essentially around fairness, accountability, and inclusion that can help recognize the farmers that data isn't a free resource that you can take for the farmers. You have to give something back as a result of it. And of course, this is out there already, but the enforcement of these principles is not something that is very vigilant across the geographies, you know, whether you say it Asia or Africa. The another layer essentially is something called as engine layer, where we have your fair and interoperable systems that again is really important for data democracy. So what these system does is they reduce platform lock-in and improve portability of systems. So essentially, they increase the bargaining power of the farmers. So they can choose which AI models they want to support, essentially. And that is what is, again, important in terms of data democracy. But again, this does not automatically improve the value sharing. That is something that needs to be implemented again. And the strongest of these 3 layers is something called as, we call it as a heart layer, which is filled with by data cooperatives, participatory governance, and performance-linked advisories. And these essentially help create visible, timely benefit faster, and of course, more alerts are provided. So this is something that farmers directly see as an immediate and a tangible benefit. So these layers are essentially important to help farmers realize what democracy or data democracy is all about. And this is what we feel that if it is put in place, I think that can actually provide a system which they talk to each other. And what is really important is that none of these systems can work in silos. You have to talk to each other. The governance and the inclusion model have to be in place for it to work. And that is where we can achieve, say, data democracy. And I think the last bit of it is that I meant to speak on is what has not been achieved? So there's a lot that has not been achieved in terms of data democracy. I think there is a model which we say as revenue sharing model at scale, which has not been implemented anywhere. I don't think so. I have an example of it. So revenue sharing is not something where the profits are always taken up by the companies that develop the model. It is something that is equally divided within the community that is coming from. So I think that is something which has not been reached yet. Secondary data monetization is still opaque. If you see, the gender norms still shape who benefits. So I'm sure all of already know, so I'm not going to talk more about it. And I think platform power, they still concentrate somewhere the economic value of these systems. So I think that is, again, that has not been achieved so far. And I think we may move away a little bit about the extraction of the data, but I think what we haven't achieved so far is how we redistribute the power. Who exactly gets benefit is something that we need to be asking questions when we talk about the data democracy. And before I close, I'm sure I'm going to be quick in 1 or 2 minutes. There are trade-offs, okay? When you put something and when you say that there's a data democracy, you also need to understand the trade-off and be very careful how you can achieve and challenge those trade-offs. One that I want to highlight, and there are many actually, is innovation versus quality. So open access, or when you say I'm democratizing my data and data sets are freely available for the AI companies to model around, you do have a trade-off in terms of inconsistent data formats. There are many examples of that. There are poor labeling standards that can happen in the society if you're making it open access. And I'm sure you have heard about this, that models that are trained on poor data sets, they produce unreliable results. So for example, in the example which I mentioned, which is on pest detection, and if it is trained on poor quality data, if it is not regulated and monitored, the same pest detection would be doing spurious exercises. And if that is happening, the same reason that you wanted to develop that model can go away. So I think that's one trade-off that we need to be very careful on. The last one I'm going to say, again, there are many, and I think I don't have time to talk about a lot of these, but I think there's also a bit of a trade-off between accessibility and the privacy statement. So when we say data democracy, we are also saying that you need to have something open data so that the local AI companies can access data and they can build upon it. But these are really sensitive information as well. So unless there are key governance model in place that regulates these data, I think you're also making a risk about making these data sensitive, making these data available for company to misuse it in a different sense. So I think that is something trade-off that we need to probably also be careful about.
Thank you so much. Please, a big round of applause for Ashwita. So she began, of course, talking about the question of incentive and equity, who benefits from data, and under what conditions does data collection become extractive rather than empowering. We looked at what incentives drives farmers and farm organizations to participate. How do we avoid mere data extraction? How can farmers tangibly benefit from the data they generated? Of course, a major issue. What are the gender dynamics that must be explicitly considered? Right, now then, I have a few questions as usual. So, to the implementers. As usual, as soon as you want to ask a question, your questions disappear. Right, to the implementers. It's a yes-no question, right? Don't worry, there's an implementers, and I'm going to ask the farmers in the room a question as well. The first question is, who has involved farmers in developing their programs and solutions? Who has involved farmers in developing their programs and solutions? That's great. There's, can I have someone with a mic? Oh, can I borrow your microphone? Olympic, yeah, very quick question. So let's, where the hands, I saw the hands. So stand up, please, the three, yeah, 1, 2, 3. Stand up, please. Sit, stand up, yep. Just really quickly, just a quick how you have, if you can.
Thank you so much. So at Digital Green, we consulted farmers to help us design Farmer Chat. So we did participatory kind of process and have been making a lot of changes to the application based on feedback that we are receiving. Some examples are we added a weather feature. Farmers wanted a voice feature so they could record their question instead of having to type it. And it's an ongoing process, so it's not like you're ever finished. I think it's continuous. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay. And then Sid and am at the back there, yeah?
So I'm Corlina Patterson from the Canadian Sheep Federation and also represent our subsidiary, which is Prove It Technologies. So our work was twofold. As the national organization that represents our producers, we're responsible to the government for providing the livestock traceability system. And so by virtue of that, we had to design something, but we also represent our farmers. And so we actually took their key requirements as a priority in building the system, and whatever else is required for regulations was sort of an add-on. So we went through an extensive exercise of having our stakeholders, because the trace system is not just the farmers, but everybody in the supply chain, of collecting their business requirements of that system. What makes it worth it for you to use it? Not that it had to be worth it. There was a regulation that requires it. But our goal was to define the value proposition. So we had everybody define their value proposition, and then we proceeded with the build from that perspective.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's exactly what you've been speaking about, Ashrita. Right, Sid, I think Sid, and just very quickly, there's two at the back there, very, very quickly.
Very quick example, we're building a tool to detect the amount of starch content in corn to be able to support procurement decisions. And one of the features of the tool design has been around how usable it can be when it's actually deployed in the field. Specifically, we've consulted with a lot of farmer-producer cooperatives. So these are not farmers per se, but these are representatives of groups of 50 to 100 farmers. Right. And every aspect of the design has been discussed and deliberated with them, because the technology will not work if it's something that is developed in the lab, but the environment where it's actually being used, if the users don't support that this is going to be something they can make it work.
Thank you. I was going to jump in just then. Right, lastly, but really, really quickly, do you want to have a comment very quickly? Are you okay? Yeah. Oh, okay, right. So I think we can move on. Right, to the farmers. I can jump down here because I see a farmer at the front. And Mercy's there. Caroline, there's Mercy over there. Right, the farmers. Here's the question. Who has been involved in the design of solutions indicators from providers? Now, I know there's only 4 of you in the room. So I'm just going to ask you the question. Have you been involved in the solutions, design of solutions indicators from providers?
Okay, thank you, Eddie. I think I've been involved for a very long time, where you sit down in the office, you draft the objectives, you look at timelines, milestones, and you look at how to monitor and evaluate the project. And then you start with stakeholders engagement to this community, where you think you want to collect data or you want to implement the project. So when you start with stakeholders engagement, you make them aware of the objectives of the project, the institution you are coming from, maybe your past records, maybe close to the community. You're able to also tell them the benefits and insight of what the project holds for them, and you hear what they have in mind. Possibly there might be other organizations that have come with that kind of projects, right. Maybe the challenges they had, or maybe their success rates, or whatever it is, you get more information from them. And whatever it is you get from just stakeholder engagement, you go back to the drawing board, and it helps you adjust your implementation plan much better.
Thank you, brilliant. I'll do one more, Mercy. I saw you there, so I thought, let me come ask you.
Thank you so much. We have been involved looking at the challenges that the farmers usually face. This is a situation whereby you help them how they can get medicine to treat their chickens in case there is any challenges that which they are facing. You get the knowledge, then you tell them they are supposed to use feeders, they are supposed to use sensors, in their poultry so that they become aware in case there is any attack to their chickens.
Brilliant, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for everyone who stood up and gave their views. Really appreciate that. At least it shows that there is a growing understanding that providers and farmers need to work together to achieve the systems that work for everybody. Right, now next we turn to the structural layer beneath interoperability. Shared registries are often discussed as technical tools, but they are fundamentally government's instruments. So our next speaker will talk to how shared registries enable standardization and interoperability, the efficiency gains for public and private actors, the benefits for government deploying national systems, and I'm sure you'll talk about much more. Please join me in welcoming Jonas Specker, Forest and Commodity Specialist, FAO. Please, big round of applause for Jonas.
Thank you. All right, the slides, can I activate them myself? Yeah, that's great. Awesome. So shared registries, what are there? So shared registries, although they are not databases in a classical sense, I'd still like you to imagine them as a type of central database where all relevant data come together. For example, agricultural data or geodata, or both of them together, basically. So you can understand it as a type of one-stop shop for data. And then whoever you are, there's no need to approach dozens of different actors to get the data you need. You can just find them in the shared registry depending on your access rights. I'm showing you here an example of what we've been working on with a range of different colleagues from different organizations, including GIZ, ITC, and the Linux Foundation. The asset registry is a public but high privacy registry of geometries. It is compliant with the General Data Protection Regulation of the European Union, which is a very strong, very strict data protection regulation. So also the different countries around this continent and around the world, if they have strong data protection laws, they are usually in line with the GDPR, rarely more strict than it. Within this registry, you can register your geometry, so that is points, line geometries or polygons, and then in return, you get a unique identifier, which is a 64-digit token, which is exactly, well, this doesn't work so well, but you can see it right there at the top. Now, this is not one that you can just easily note down on a notepad or anything, but still, you can store it quite simply, for example, in Excel tables, which we found that, for example, cooperatives all over this continent usually have as their main database, where they store all the data of the different farmers that belong to the cooperatives, etc. So just putting this into one column of the table is significantly more easy than storing the geodata as a GeoJSON file, or as a shape file, or as a geopackage file, or you name all the different file types that are out there. And then another great thing is that you can just convert this into a QR code in a matter of seconds. You can print it out, laminate it, give it to the farmer in question, and you pretty much give them data ownership of their own data, and they can carry around their geodata with them at all times, hand it to somebody if they need it, and also use it for their own purposes, as you will see in a second. So with this token that you get, the GeoID, you can share it only with those who really need it. So talking about supply chain traceability, if you want to have the geodata go through the supply chain traceability, you only show this token to whoever needs it in the moment, and you don't just spread it around in any kind of other database. And then only those who have this token can actually access the geometry. Nobody can just search for it at will. So when you have all these geometries, talk about, well, we've been working in Kenya, for example, on a lot of coffee plots. The asset registry doesn't work like this, that you just say, give me all the coffee plots of county XYZ in Kenya. That does not work, and that is by design. if you are an exporter or an importer to the European Union, for example, and you want to get access to this data, you can only find it if you have the token. So that is privacy by design. We as FAO, we encourage the countries to have their own national instances of the asset registry, which are kind of hub and node system. It's a bit more complex, so I will not get into that right now. But we're also starting to host a fallback option very soon at FAO. We're about to launch it in the next couple of weeks, because there are a couple of geographies on this continent, but also in the world, where maybe the capacities are not in country to create an asset registry of your own. But we know that countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, for example, those are the ones that we're working at, they definitely have the capacities. So there was a question about efficiency. How do shared registries help with efficiency, interoperability, and standardization? So I already said it, a one-stop shop. I think that's kind of self-explanatory. In terms of efficiency, as I already said, you don't have the heavy files such as shape files, GeoJSONs, etc. You don't need to put it on a flash drive, share it by email or anything. You just have the simple ID, which you can share through a QR code, for example, or have in your Excel table. It is then also very lightweight, so no matter how big your geometry, maybe it's just a single point, then it is 2 coordinates, that's maybe, yeah, that's 20 characters, 30 characters or whatnot. But maybe you also have a polygon with 1,000 corners, which quickly can be 10 megabytes or something. No matter what geometry you have in the asset registry, the output is always a 64-digit token. So you always know ahead of time it's only these 64 digits. It's very, very lightweight, very easy to share. Finally, we are developing this with an API, and that allows seamless integration into other solutions. So we've been developing this, or the Linux Foundation mostly has been developing this, but we're also contributing. Is with traceability in mind, so to give these tokens through the value chain, so that whenever it is needed, the geometries can be accessed. But this can also be used by the farmers, like I already said, printed as a QR code, for example. And then if there's application providers or application developers, for example, that develop applications for extension services, for example, or with climate forecasts, weather forecast, meteorological data, information about when to seed, when to plant, etc., you name it, they could easily just put in their GeoID into the application and immediately get the tailored services for their specific geometry, for their specific geodata. So you see, there's a strong focus on geodata here, but it's not exclusive on geodata. And since we have this API that is working, it is highly interoperable by default. Lastly, what are the benefits for example, governments? It does facilitate data access in the interest of all stakeholders. So that is for farmers, as I've just said, with extension services, for example. It also facilitates data access for commercial operators that are increasingly facing compliance requirements for regulations, as, for example, the EUDR. So they need the geodata to prove due diligence when they are importing to the EU. But also the governments themselves can have a better overview of where the plots are, where needs are, how to extend services. Yeah, I'm going a little bit in a circle here, but I hope you understand what I mean. And then finally, you do centrally aggregate all national data and you maintain data sovereignty. That is, if the country does set up its own data registry, its own shared registry. But as I said, we are also developing the international fallback option at the FAO level. And as a UN body, we are a supranational organization with more than 190 countries that are part of it. So that also lends credibility to this kind of registry. Well, and then finally, as I said again, it is very high data privacy focused. So you only share what's necessary, and those that get your token only get what they need based on their access rights. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jonas. Right, so Jonas spoke to how shared registries enable standardization and interoperability, the efficiency gains for public and private actors, and the benefits for governments deploying national systems. My question: who of you believe that in their country, stakeholders can agree on a shared agricultural data registry? Who of you believe that in their country, stakeholders can agree on a shared agricultural data registry? Wow. Oh, good, thank you. Well, put it this way, if all your hands were down, I was still coming to ask you to answer. Right, please, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I'll be speaking from experience because 2 or 3 years ago, the government of Malawi actually decided to have all the farmers registered. So we have a central database of all the farmers. And the data that we were collecting included the name of the farmer, the crops they grow, the land size they have, and if they have any access to any loans with any company or organization. And this work was done, I know FOA was very much involved in that work, and so many other development partners. So yes, it is possible that stakeholders
So it's
can
possible.
agree.
In
Yes.
Malawi, it's being done. There was someone, who else was there? I saw 2 hands, or? Oh, there we go.
Thank you. I think it would be possible to share this data through this geospace. How did he call
Asset
them?
registries.
Yeah. So I think the most benefits would be for we as farmers is to have the ownership and the access services like weather, advisory, financial. Like whenever you have this shared infrastructure, you can easily share with other institutions, either to access finance, either to access certification, and the other services. For the commercial operators like exporters, it simplifies compliance requirements such as geodata traceability like UDR and the others. Right. So it is easier to access this data. So having this data in one place also can facilitate for the exporters. As he mentioned, for the government also, it provides visibility, and also it can ease the planning, and also for the international organization. Once you have data in one place, then together with the government, it can be easier to come together and they have a planning together. Right. Such as data traceability also, and also extension services and the regulatory oversight. That's where I see the benefits for the 3 categories. Right. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Please give a big round of applause to all of you who participated. And also, of course, a bigger round of applause to Jonas Becker, Forests and Commodities Specialist, FAO. Thank you, Jonas. Infrastructure cannot function without trust. Digital collaboration across competitors, governments, and markets requires deliberate design. Our next speaker will reflect on how consensus is built in competitive environments, what makes pre-competitive collaboration viable, and the governance elements required for digital trust to hold. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a digital economy and innovation strategist. He's the former Assistant Secretary General level to the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Technology. Big round of applause, Fayaz King.
Thank you, Andy, and a very good morning to you all. A few years ago, I found myself in a room with banks, a regulator, telecom operators, and fintechs. The problem we were trying to solve was simple. Customers were onboarding 5 times. There were 5 forms, 5 verifications, 5 versions of the same KYC process. Everyone agreed this is inefficient, Everyone agreed that this was bad for customers. Everyone agreed we should bear shared KYC rails. And then nothing moved. Absolutely nothing moved. Not because we lacked APIs, not because the technology was immature, not because the integration was complex. It stalled because no one could price the risk of trusting the other. Banks worried about liability, telcos worried about losing control of the customers, fintechs worried about exclusion, regulators worried about systematic exposure. And the real question in the room, the question that was never written on the agenda was this: what exactly do we mean by trust? That's what I want to talk about today. Here's a claim that I'll make. Digital collaboration between competitors in the public sector does not fail because of technology gaps. It fails because trust is unpriced and unspecified. When trust is a sentiment, collaboration stalls. When trust is specified in governance, in liability, in standards, in enforcement, collaboration scales. Now let me be clear about what we mean by preemptive competition or pre-competitive collaboration. Pre-competitive does not mean sharing customers. It does not mean sharing pricing strategies. It does not mean sharing proprietary models. It means agreeing on the rails, shared standard identities, common onboarding formats, API specifications, conformance testing, security baselines, defined liability. We're not trying to merge business models. We're trying to agree on the rails so each of us could compete better above them. That distinction changes the tone of the conversation, because when competitors realize they're aligning on infrastructure, not on strategy, defensiveness drops. But alignment does not happen by goodwill alone. In that KYC case, progress only began when we stopped talking about trust as a value and started specifying it as a canvas. This is the tool we used. Think of it as a trust canvas. If you cannot fill these elements in, you're ready or you're not yet ready to collaborate. First, the purpose and boundaries. What is the exact use case in the shared KYC verification? Explicitly excluded are transaction data, pricing data, and customer analytics. Second, the participants, who can join, under what certification requirements. Third, data rules, purpose limitation, retention timelines, consent mechanisms, and auditability. Fourth, interoperability, standardized data schema, versioned APIs, conformance testing before access. Fifth, assurance, independent certification, logging, breach notification timelines. Sixth, governance, who has decision rights, how are standards updated, and how are disputes resolved. Seventh, competition safeguards, explicit guardrails to ensure collaboration stays at the rail level. Eighth, the economics, who pays, how are the cost shares, what are the sanctions for non-compliance. It's the last one, the eighth one, that's always uncomfortable and always the one that will be decisive. Here is what changed in the room. The breakthrough did not come when people trusted the other or trusted each other more. It came when we trusted the canvas more, because the canvas defined who is liable, who decides, who audits, who enforces, and what happens when something fails. Trust moved from emotion to enforceable structure. And once that happened, we could start small. One thin slice at a time, one baseline, one certified integration, then we could scale. Now let me shift to what still blocks progress. Because even when we know how to do this, it remains hard. From my perspective, 3 things repeatedly stall collaboration. First, we still treat trust as a moral concept instead of an operating system. It is an operating system. We talk about values, we rarely talk about enforcement. If there are no consequences, there is no trust canvas at all. Second, incentives are often misaligned. The party that invests most in compliance, in cybersecurity, in auditability, often bears more cost. Another party may capture more value. Until the economics are explicit, collaboration remains fragile. Third, the governance capacity lags ambition. Standards may exist, regulation may exist, but certification bodies are thin. Audit skills are scarce. Incident response is reactive. That is why pilots proliferate and platforms do not. So what does this mean for digital public infrastructure? It means trust canvases are not a diplomatic layer on top of a digital system. They are an operating system. When you specify trust governance standards, liability incentives, you do not dilute competition. You make it safer and cheaper to compete on what truly differentiates you. And that is how interoperability scales with legitimacy. Let me close with a simple question. In your next collaboration, whether it is digital ID, payments, farmer registries, AI governance, or cross-border data flows, what is the one trust element you will insist on specifying this year so your next collaboration is enforceable, not aspirational? Thank you.
Thank you, Fayaz. Audra, do you mind putting the framework, the slide up with Fayaz's trust canvas? Thank you. Thanks, Fayaz. Right, so Fayaz, of course, he spoke to, well, where am I? He spoke to what trust is and, of course, the trust canvas that's here. So I have a question for you all. Here is my question. Do you believe that Fayaz's trust canvas is relevant to your work or not? Yes or no? Do you believe Fayaz's trust canvas is relative to your work? Thank you. There, thank you. That's one. Anyone else? All right. I'll jump over here. Go ahead, please.
I must say I'm not sure that I can be as brilliant as Mr. Fayaz. So I strongly believe that it's not a moral issue. It doesn't mean that the initial drive could be moral, but eventually you need to set rules. We had a number of discussions with participants in the last few hours, including yesterday night on this. Practically, I'm thinking of not necessarily just a DPI, but implementing an open source tool on traceability. And what came out, just as an example, was users of that open source traceability questioning where their data was stored and who had control over it. We probably haven't said that clearly enough. We thought that, you know, just the trust, the faith in the implementing partners would be enough to find out that it wasn't, and probably that the rules were not clearly stated so that it can last and we can build over it. So it's just confirming what you just said. Thank you.
Thank you. The foundation matters.
Hi there. Thank you. Yeah, very, very insightful. Actually, I'm working with Charles on one of the things I work on is this open source traceability question, and in fact, the ability to assemble the right stakeholders to have the diversity of view you need to guide good quality decisions is what we're kind of learning our way into, because you need to know who decides these things. And obviously we're talking about across organizational boundaries with the canvas. You know, but there's a kind of establishing a foundation of collaborative governance that's required to go down this path. But thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Big round of applause to all of you and to Fayaz King. Thank you, Fayaz. Inspirational and some food for thought. Thank you for that. Now, we now close this foundational block at the national level, because now we're going to talk about national data infrastructure. Because interoperability across supply chains and borders ultimately depends on national data infrastructure. We have two gentlemen with us today who will be speaking on the benefits of national data infrastructures, how permission data sharing can be enabled across stakeholders and borders, and how these infrastructures can be fed by agile farmer-level data collection. The two gentlemen who will be presenting now, the first one is Krishan Benik. He's a lead consultant, knowledge management, networking, capacity building. Well, that's a mouthful. KMNCB, I got that right? Associates, KM consultant to the Commonwealth Secretariat. There's Krishan there. Please give him a round of applause. And his colleague who will be co-presenting with him or giving us the presentation together is Dr. Benjamin Kwasi Adom, Advisor, Agriculture and Fisheries Trade Policy, Commonwealth Connectivity Agenda. Please, big round of applause there for Benjamin. Right. Do you want to ask that question? Oh, okay, he wants me to ask the question first. Okay, before you start talking. Good. I can gladly do that. This will set the stage, I think, for their presentation. Right, so here is the question. Who has already worked in integrating data democracy, shared registries, and trust? Remember, we spoke about all of them before. Who has already worked in integrating data democracy, shared registries, and trust? Oh, 1, 2. Wow, okay, 3. Right, let's have a quick whip round before we get back to the speakers.
So I work for Open Supply Hub, which is an organization that essentially we're trying to map production globally at a comprehensive scale, but we are attempting to do it in a way that stakeholders throughout supply chains can mutually benefit, everyone from the person who owns or works at the location itself all the way up to people who are sourcing from that location and civil society organizations that are involved. And so I think our foundation of trust, not necessarily in Mr. King's sense, but more the emotional sense, I guess, is based on the idea that there is mutual benefit if we're all able to come to the same table.
Brilliant, thank you. Very quickly. Then I saw
the example I showed yesterday of shipping that verifiably deforestation-free container of coffee used the asset registry, some open source traceability. All of that started with a kind of whole of value chain mediation process that I mentioned yesterday. And one thing I didn't mention is that the cooperatives we're working with are issuing these cards that are the consent mechanism specifically for those people who are allowing use of their georeferences.
Was there someone over there? I thought I saw a hand. There.
Thanks. It's Greg from IDC. I just wanted to confirm that, yes, we also work on shared registries because we believe that the vision of having like a one global source of all the information is really not realistic. So instead, we are looking for solutions which allow the data owners, governments, private sector initiatives signal and inform what kind of information is out there so that others can discover and use it in their solutions. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you. Is anyone else? Last one, if there is anyone? No? Oh, there, at the back there. Oh, Caroline.
Thank you so much. I'll talk on behalf of, in Uganda, we have the refugees context. When they come to Uganda, we get their information, like in this period, how many refugees entered into the country. The government get their detailed status and also inform the implementing partners to give food assistance. So in that, you have the NGO that have the data, even the government have the access to data and the accurate data. So that's kind of integration to help and inform to make support to these refugees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Benjamin, I think that sets the stage for you.
No, thank you very much. I'll start and Christian will finish. The two of us are going to use 10 minutes, so it's going to be tough for us. So I'm going to start with a familiar story, the EUDR story that most of us know and talk about. So it's a situation where there is this external regulation with good intention for countries, but we know what is happening in the countries. You know, everybody's scrambling to get the data to be able to export their commodities to EU market in order to meet the regulations. So there's so much going on in the countries, and we don't even know what is going to be happening when they start at the side of the EU, you know, with the data traceability and all those things. So that's a typical issue that we think a national data infrastructure will help address it. So I'm going to explain what we mean by national data infrastructure. So it's not just data infrastructure. So between 2023 and 2024, 25, the Commonwealth Secretariat engaged 4 countries through a multi-stakeholder dialogue to understand how they manage their data, agricultural data, climate data in their countries. So we went to Malawi, Ghana, Bangladesh, and Barbados. We spent 2 to 3 days in each of these dialogues and had all kinds of people, government, private, NGOs, UN bodies, researchers. And I mean, the message was, everybody for himself, God for us all. Because everybody is collecting data, but there's nobody bringing them together to share, you know. So that was the story. So we came up together with them with a framework, which I'm coming to describe. I'm going to build on what Lars said yesterday with the road infrastructure or the rail infrastructure. So we came up with 4 components of a national data infrastructure that integrates all that we have heard already, right? So the first one is the technology. So we are saying to position infrastructure at national level, okay, at country level, you need a rail. As you can see on the screen, you need a rail. You need, you know, the tarmac and the bridges and the pavements and all those things. But for those technologies to work, you need policies. You need guidelines, the speed limit, you know, zebra crossing, so that people can know, the vehicles can know, oh, I need to stop here, I need to go 100 or 50, you know. You need the policies to guide the technical infrastructure, okay? If you put that in place, now the data has to flow through the infrastructure. But when the data is flowing, who is going to make sure that the policies are working? Who is going to make sure that people obey the rules so that you don't overspeed, so that you don't hit a pedestrian when, you know, you get to zebra crossing, all kinds of things. So there should be an enforcement of the rule. And that's what the governance comes in. And that's what we think the trust framework applies, because you need to trust each other and you need to trust, somebody to manage your data. Okay, so we said independent governance mechanism should apply to the management of this national data infrastructure. And the final component of the national data infrastructure is the incentives, the data democracy. So you have collected data, you have mapped the field, you have registered farmers into your registries, and somebody else wants to access it. What is the incentive? What do I gain? Because it's my business data. Even though the policy says I should share it, it's my business data. So there should be incentives. So this is basically the 4 components of a national data infrastructure, which talks about the technologies, basically the registries, whether the farmer registry, the geo registry, crop registry, all working together. But what we are saying is that technology part should be a data exchange technology. The DPI at national level should be the one that talks to all the existing data systems in the country. So for the last 2 years, we've engaged with these countries, and we've not seen one of this model working in any country at that national level. We see individual entities doing their own things. So that is where we are, to see how we can bring all stakeholders together to apply these basic principles to work together. Everybody will keep their data, okay, but exchange through this national infrastructure. I will hand over to Christian to conclude.
Great, thanks. So we're a dual act. So basically everyone agrees that yes, this concept of a national the national data infrastructure applied to agriculture is relevant. It's something they need. And what we try to do then, following these dialogues, we through a write-up process, we came up with the concept of this policy guide for the countries. And and people said, okay, well, for us to be able to implement is a good idea, but we need, very often we heard this permission structure. It needs to be approved by the president's office before we start working on it. And somehow you think, well, why can't we as technical people in the agricultural sector already start working on it? But somehow there seems to be that need for blessing from a higher up office and then to come down, to trickle down. So we thought, okay, so how do we help the countries make the case for the establishment of, sorry Ben, this is the diagram you'll see outside on the poster. So we tried to formulate it for the stakeholders in the country, and we developed this agricultural data infrastructure in the form of an investment project. So the policymaker can say, okay, I want to implement this thing we call NAGD as an acronym. And here it's recognizing that we're not asking you to develop another platform. We are saying it's a framework to help you plan the implementation of your data infrastructure, right, in your country. So it recognizes that we are building on existing infrastructure, builds the existing systems. We are interconnecting. So we are proposing an intervention at a country level, but the vision from the Commonwealth is that we want to look at how we can connect countries to each other and eventually have a regional or even a global level. And therefore, as a typical project, we came up with the vision. Then there's these 4 components grouped into two goals, and basically, obviously, in the style of writing up a project proposal, you have the goals, the objectives. So the 4 components are linked to 4 strategic objectives, and then obviously the 4 result areas. And then we trickle down to 4 broad activities per result area. And then each one of these broad activities themselves were split into 4 set of detailed activities. So you can imagine that there's a lot of detail. Now, the beauty of it is that, well, I think what's nice about it is that it enables someone or a policymaker or the stakeholders to understand the implementation of this data infrastructure, working on different components, but without losing the overall picture. And that's how it looks like, in terms of a project, of an investment project. Now, remember I said 4 result areas, 4 broad areas, and then 4 each. So it turns out to be 64 different activities that were described. So this is one perspective as an investment project, and the second one is as an implementation timeline. So we try to put ourselves in the shoes, and again, it came out with all our these discussions during the dialogue. Which one comes first? What is dependent on the other one, and therefore, is there a preferred sequencing of things? And here what you'll see is, we said that if you're starting from scratch, if you have nothing existing in the country, maybe it might take you up to 5 years to have a fully operational data infrastructure, the way we've described. And what you see on that chart visually is 4 components spread over 5 years. And with the shadings, you can see the kinds of activities that at any time, there's always something happening in each one of those 4 components, right? And that's the overall structure we've put in the policy guide. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is the offer? Basically here, the offer is a framework for a country to plan a holistic approach to implementing its national data infrastructure, right? And maybe I'll just finish with this one line. In the context of this meeting, the success of a country will depend on how well they integrate agile principles in the implementation of DPI in their country. Thank you very much.
Christian and Benjamin, big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. I really want to thank all of our speakers today for your candid and really honest comments and ideas and thoughts for the room to take away. Ladies and gentlemen, please, as they leave the stage, please give them a big round of applause. Now, before they all go, Ashrita, unfortunately, will be leaving us she's going home now at 10:30. She's flying back to India. So if you want to quickly get her card or network, do it very quickly. The break will be coming up very shortly. You should be able to do it then. Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, Fayaz, Ashrita, Jonas, thank you. Benjamin, Kushan, well done. Really appreciate it. Cheers, mate. Thank you so much. If there's one takeaway from this session, ladies and gentlemen, it's that scale is not accidental. It rests on foundations we must deliberately design. Now, as I said, we will be taking a break shortly, but I would encourage you all, please, to continue this conversation with each other. Test one assumption. Ask someone how these foundational challenges show up in your own context. Continue the conversation. Now, before we go for a break, I'm going to ask Carolyn and the other facilitators here to come up and explain the World Cafe. That will be coming up later, and then we'll move into that after the break. Carolyn, over to you.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Hi. Thank you. It was important to spend that time to anchor some of the topics that we want to continue discussing after the break. So what's going to happen after the break, maybe if you can show the slide, that's wonderful, is you see that we've changed the setup from yesterday to today. You've got all those post-its, so you already know you're going to be working, and that's what's happening after the break. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into the 4 topics that were discussed this morning. And we want to hear from you, and we're going to try to understand what are the challenges in making this happen, those 4 topics that are here on the slides. What are the challenges? What are the root cause of that? Before we jump this afternoon more in a solution space. So here we're going to continue really asking us the real question of why is this not progressing the way we want. So just so you know, you're going to go on break. We're going to be back. Sorry, we eat a little bit of time. So at 10:45. When you will be back, you will see that in the tables, you see you've got those little things, but they are empty so far. So when you're back, there's going to be a color and a paper on that, and it's going to match what you see on the screen. So please think about the topic that you'd like to dig deeper into. So basically, when you will be back from the lunch, you will sit to a table from the break, thank you. You will go to a table that has the color that you wish to contribute. You'll be able to move around table, so it doesn't mean that you're stuck forever in that topic, but that's at least where you want to start. So just repeating, after the break, you come back and you sit at a table that has the sign on the topic that you'd like to look into. So those 4 topics, we've talked about data democracy, so we're going to think about collecting and using farmer data to increase farmer agency. Then we've talked about shared registry, so if you'd like to think about deploying and relying on shared registry, you go to a table that has a red paper. If you want to think about collaborating between competitors and public sector, the trust dimensions that we were discussing, you go to the green. And if you want to think about shaping policies and enabling environment for data exchange, you go to the blue one. I hope that's clear. We'll be there to guide you on what's going to happen when you are there, but this is just so that when you're back, sit on the table. The last thing I want to say, we're going to have 3 tables per topics. So you may not have a seat exactly where you want to be, so that's okay. You're going to contribute to another topic, but don't leave. Try to make sure the groups are more or less same size. It's if you have a table of 2 persons, that's probably a lost opportunity for more conversation. I'll stop here. We'll meet in 20 minutes back. And more explanation coming. Thank you, everybody.
Sorry, before you go, sorry, Carolyn, to jump in. I would just like to welcome, because she wasn't here, Gretchen, the acting CEO of COSA. There you are. Say hi. There she is. Say hi to everybody. There we go. Thank you. Just wanted to quickly introduce her. Right. Yeah. The tea break, and Carolyn said we'll be back at 10:45. Right. Thank you. Enjoy your tea. It's outside.